and I will never ever be apart. But we might, girl, quit playing. We're just friends, what are you saying? Said there's another look right in my eyes. My first love broke my heart for the first time, and I was like, baby, 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 ooh, oh, baby, 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 ooh, baby, 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 ooh. Thought you'd always be mine. For you I would have done whatever, and I just can't believe we ain't together. And I wanna play it cool, but I'm losing you. I'll buy you anything, I'll buy you any ring, and I'm in pieces. Baby, fix me and just shake me till you wake me from these bad dreams. I'm going down, 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 and I just can't believe my first love won't be around. I'm like, baby, 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 ooh, like, baby, 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 no, baby, 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 ooh, thought you'd always be mine, baby, 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 ooh, like, baby, 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 no, like, baby, 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 ooh, thought you'd always be mine, mine. Baby, 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 ooh, baby, 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 no, baby, 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 ooh, thought you'd always be mine, mine, baby, no, I'm not gone. Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me? Okay, hello. I'm Shailene. I'm a librarian here at the Enoch Pratt Free Library. And I want to welcome everyone who's either here with us in the Poe Room or with us virtually. Thank you so much for making time to celebrate poetry. We'd love to see you come back to the library for other poetry events. So please, if you're not already on our poetry events email list, sign up on the table in the back there. And if you're with us virtually, you can get on that list by sending an email to poetry@prattlibrary.org. Also, on the table in the back of this room, you can find some beautiful broadsides that Andrew Klein of the library's marketing department created, featuring Anne Rong's contest-winning poem. So those are free for you. Please take one home with you and enjoy it. We are hoping that by the end of the evening, we will also have some copies of the summer issue of Little Patuxent Review for sale on that table in the back of the room. We're waiting for them to show up. That summer issue features the wonderful poems that we are honoring tonight by Anne Rong, Eleanora Hyde, and Bruce Sager, as well as work by Lisa Park, whom we are lucky to have reading tonight as well. But even if those copies don't show up for sale in this room, you can go online to littlepatuxentreview.org and purchase your copy there. The 2023 Enoch Pratt Free Library Poetry Contest received 209 entries from all over Maryland, 75 cities and towns, and 15 counties, plus Baltimore City. This was the 12th poetry contest that we've had, and this is the 10th time that we have collaborated on the contest with Little Patuxent Review,
whose staff have been extremely generous in donating their time and talent. And we want to thank all of them, especially Chelsea Lemon Fetzer, who could not have been more gracious and supportive. She's just a really wonderful person to work with. So I'm going to introduce Chelsea now, and she will take over as event host. Chelsea Lemon Fetzer is a 2019 Rubies recipient for the literary arts and a recipient of the Maryland State Arts Council's 2022 Independent Artist Award. Her fiction and poetry have appeared in journals such as Callaloo, Tin House, Mississippi Review, and Minnesota Review. Her essay Speck appears in The Beijing of America, Personal Narratives About Being Mixed Race in the 21st Century. Fetzer teaches literature and creative writing at the University of Baltimore, serves as vice chair on the board of City Lit Project, is a contributing editor at Be More Art magazine, and is the lead editor of the Little Patuxent Review. So please help me to welcome Chelsea, our host for tonight's event.
Thank you so much, Shailene. Thank you to the Enoch Pratt Free Library for this fantastic opportunity for Maryland poets. And to Shailene, you bring so much heart and dedication to this poetry contest every year and do it so humbly. I don't know if people realize how much you put into this. So we're just also lucky to have you. Thank you. And thank you for the partnership we've had over the past 3 years and beyond with LPR. Oh, there's some people trying to come in. I'd also like to thank LPR's magically smart poetry editor. Hey guys, Evan Lesavoy, who famously does not show up places because he's shy. But he is the one who I speak with in the late hours of the night as we go through these submissions and have the most wonderful conversations with as we're trying to figure out our finalists and winner, which is really quite difficult each time. Um, I am hoping, as Shailene said, that some of our board members can come from Little Patuxent Review to bring the issue, but I'm afraid the weather might have held them back. It's they're coming from Columbia, so we'll see. At the end, if they're here, I'll make an announcement about that. But without further ado, I would like to turn toward the poets reading here tonight. So we have two finalists, uh, the um, the poetry contest and the winner, as well as a contributor from the issue of LPR in which we published the finalists and winner. And I will be reading a bit too. So there's 5 of us reading all together this evening. We're going to start with finalist Eleanora Hyde, who is a photographer, filmmaker, and poet living in Baltimore ever since the pandemic brought her closer to home. She loves capturing everyday beauty in any medium, and her recent work can be viewed at norahyde.com. Nora.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the Little Patuxent Review for publishing my poem. This might be the first poem that I've ever had published in a physical copy, so I've absolutely, it's already like been taken with me everywhere because I'm just so proud of it. So the first poem that I will read tonight is my poem, which was a finalist in the contest, No Stars But City Lights. An illuminated billboard broadcasts a cheap beer ad. The distant glow of lamp posts and traffic lights. Yellow office windows ablaze with emptiness. Flickering red taillights on the interstate. Too much like urban fireflies to represent real people going to work or maybe a home where someone has left a light on for them. Unheld in darkness, time clicks. Eyes radiate with the narcotic blue light of screens. What are we without sweet distractions? Memes, sex, too much wine and weed, late night phone calls, someone else's ragged breath that lets me forget how much more I wanted, or why I dreamt I swallowed broken glass with all the things that I want to say but keep arranged in my brain in case someone asks me in just the right way. Tiny circuit boards, tiny circuit board lights flash inside my head. Thoughts like wires, frayed, strayed, unplugged, always searching for meaning where there is perhaps none. I imagine myself transmitting a signal by reflecting moonlight off a mirror in Morse code, flaring unnoticed into a polluted cityscape of twinkling. Outside, a helicopter search beam glares surveillance through my window. They must be looking for someone too. Thank you. Um, the next poem that I'm going to read, I read at the event in Colombia, and that was the poem that I think resonated with people. So that's a poem that I wrote when I had a short mentorship with the poet Warsan Shire. She was the Young Poet Laureate of London, and she also contributed to Beyonce's Lemonade. Um, and so when I was mentoring with her, she gave me a prompt to write a letter to a part of my body. And this poem is called Stretch Marks. Stretch marks. Pale indented lines on inner thigh, cracks in the dry earth of my skin. When I was 11, they appeared, red as blood with my first period. My bird like legs had blossomed with lines like a weeping willow, of violent, blood twigged dogwood. The shame I felt between my thighs, no longer innocent, stained with the red pen of puberty, like permanent edits on a rough draft, hastily etched markings that translate not good enough, lack structure, use perforated paper, awkward fragments, consider revising. I tried to cover the blushing scars as though they had been self inflicted, afraid that people would look at my thighs and see the woman tearing through my skin and think, how dare you, bursting out of your once beautiful body. What a greedy girl to need more room than this cage of your skin allows. The skin protects our inside from the world and shields the world from what's inside us. The more I grow, the more rifts in the barrier. Yawning fissures, chasms, uneven gashes ripping through the fabric of my flesh, venting like fish gills against smooth surface, altering my seams, letting me out, more permeable, letting a universe in. I have heard others describe their scars as lightning bolts across the sky of their breasts. Mine have faded into ghostly tributaries, ravines flowing downward in imitation of my sex. Sometimes they are barely visible fractures that exist only with a sense of touch. My scars braille on the open book of my thighs. I let men read what is written there with blind fingers and tongue. The next one is going to be an absolute doozy to translate because I think it goes fast and is very. It's good that I'm reading it because I think that it's all about the way that the words sound. This poem I composed um, actually when I was in college and I was studying theater. And I was absolutely obsessed with this play by Carol Churchill called The Skriker. In it, the Skriker is this mystical character that is losing their magic, and the way that they speak is poetry. It is beautiful, but it is probably formal thought disorder, which is characterized by a lot of rhyming and cliches and fairy tale structure. So that is what inspired this poem about my mother being sick and dying. It is called Once Upon a Trauma. Once upon a trauma. There is a metronome gnome trapped, tap, tap, tapping through the walls, halls, hollows of my heart, head, dead, dead. Soft to Betty Bye Bye and Scream Dream, the little baby blondie wants her mommy back from the black in between. When was the last safe place? Ouched out of the pouch. Lucky Ducky's tub was bubbles and matching jumpers jumping juniper jungles, complete with cardboard castles, playing princess to poo, poo, poo. No, literal shit, forget the fan. Feces in the cooler cool? Chill, chilly, silly. Don't cry over spilled brains. Rains here less than tears tear through. Mama's dementia dramas, a dim dinner. Wet spaghetti yeti. But the monster under your bed is your mind. Terrible thing to waste of time. Waiting for what? The moldy oldies drool, drip drop for staircase or frying pan euthanasia. But I refuse to use the phone cord for killing. Spitting stupid questions, quizzing, who is your daughter? Dolly's head is on backwards. Rocking chair rocked away, rockabye, baby Blondie is a magic beanstalk, no water needed. Am I tall enough to say goodbye? Anticipatory grief didn't anticipate your grayness, or the bloated choking on putrid pearls, so fancy. Florid frosting fingers find home in my own. Hold my hand, hurts, heartsick, sick of seeing sickness. See me. Chocolate cake bakes better than me when it crumbles to the last lovey love. Leave mama die. Daddy called crying coo. Shh. Alive, live a life that's mine. All blondies now. Until the beastie bad wolf blew the house down, blows down baby. Thank you. And this is another about my mother. And this will be my last because I just make myself emotional with all of these. This is called The Sound of Forgetting. My mother had hair of wind chimes in a storm. Her face was a snare drum in the rain, the droplets beating out music. The arch of her brow was the orchestra on the Titanic. Her eyes were an echo, blue, the color of drowning. My mother's mouth was the intricate bloom of a peony, the lines in her lips the stripes on a tigress. Her teeth were the grind of crushed ice. She smiled, and it was the sound of forgetting. My mother's throat was the skin underneath a band-aid. The dip of her collarbone was the weight from love. Her breast were shucked oysters against mother of pearl. Her belly was the most reliable engine in the machine. My mother's arms were a terms and conditions agreement. Her wrists were wine sediment stuck between teeth. Her hands were oxidized cedar wood. She snapped her fingers with Midas curse. My mother had the heart of a hushed bell. Her rib cage was an umbrella for shelter. Her shoulder blades were the bloody nubs of wings. The small of her back was an electric kettle burning on the stove. My mother's thighs were the smell of ozone. Her knees were hard boiled egg yolk. Her ankles were the good china for guests. Her feet spoke of sacrifice. My mother was the dawn. Her thoughts were abstract modern art. She bled, and her blood was a cherry blossom. Her bones were a joke popsicle stick. What time is it when you run out of ice cream? Time to die. Thank you.
Eleanora, thank you so much. Those were so moving. Um, I just love this vision of your mother that stays with me. Our next reader, Lisa Park, is an adolescent medicine physician, former college health director, and gun violence advocate. In addition to the summer issue of Little Patuxent Review, she has poetry published or forthcoming in Gyroscope Review, The Healing Muse, and Tipton Poetry Journal. She has nonfiction forthcoming in months to years. Lisa, come on up.
I'm shorter. Okay. So thank you so much, Chelsea and Little Patuxent Review and Enoch Pratt Library for the opportunity to be here. The summer LPR release was my first poetry reading, so this is only my second, and it's just so fun. So thank you. Um, so today I'll share poetry inspired by my parents' life as first generation Chinese immigrants, my own life as a second generation Chinese American, and my kids' lives as third generation Asian Americans. Um, the first two poems I'll read today are in the summer Little Patuxent Review edition. The first is called Love Par Avion. To give you a little background on the poem, so my parents, watching online because they're watching my kids, thank you, immigrated from Hong Kong and the Philippines in the 1970s to Canada. So they're first generation immigrants. My dad recently showed me the letters that his parents wrote to him and my mom's parents wrote to her. And back then, well, still, I don't know, international phone calls were expensive, and no email, of course. So they used special paper to send letters, and it's very thin, so it's lighter and cheaper to mail. And the stamps were imprinted with par avion, which means by airmail. So this is Love Par Avion. On leaf thin, quarter folded par avion paper, my grandma, Amma, wrote in straight columns of Chinese, inked right to left, to her daughter, who rocked her newborn girl beneath fruitless trees with deciduous rubied leaves. Reading Old Chinese unbroken by punctuation, my mom hears when Amma paused to breathe, finished a thought, questioned if her daughter and grandbaby would root deeply in a cold new country without the warmth of aunties or the tending of cousins. Her letter, a love song's refrain. I hope you are healthy, the baby is well. Send more pictures. Oh, thanks. My next poem is called Contest, What It's Like to Be Different. My best friend is here, and we were talking about how it's good to have context of where the poet's mindset was, and also my good friend went through this with me. So I'm going to tell you a little story about where my mind was. So during the pandemic, I was the director of a health clinic, which means I was thinking about COVID all day long, and then more at night, just like everybody else. And so I used to go running regularly to clear my head. But when I passed people on the trail, I would pull my shirt collar up over my mouth and nose and moved several feet off the trail. And it wasn't because I was worried about getting COVID, because it was outdoor. Um, I was actually more worried about people's response to me. They would see an Asian person running, breathing heavily, and maybe they might think, oh, she's going to give me COVID, or she's the reason why we have COVID. And I knew, of course, this notion is not based in medical science, but rather fear and racism. And yet I had internalized this feeling of foreignness, otherness. And so that's kind of where my headspace was. And then the increase in hate crimes against Asian Americans during the pandemic just reinforced this thought of otherness and I'm different. So the next poem is me grappling with this insidious nature of racism and how much it really is in the water that we're swimming in, as described by Dr. Jones, Dr. Camera Phyllis Jones. Contest, what it's like to be different. Imagine you're in line at the self checkout. The lady ahead takes too long and asks for help. What's worse, has an accent. People behind silently curse, so you make sure you expertly scan your diced tomatoes, eggs, and spam. Though you don't have an accent, look how efficient you are, a model shopper. Cringe as you read the news, a recent crime. The writer census labels the perpetrator, subtitle, the criminal doesn't belong. Confirming the whole lot of us who are different, yet all look the same, are the wayward ones needing to prove ourselves. Stop when your son laughs at a YouTuber with a fake accent, not a refined European Siri setting, but more like the lady taking too long at self checkout. Start to draw lines to connect the accent to his own grandma. Her sentences home fried rice, spam, eggs, diced tomatoes. In this contest, is the winner the one who spins self checkout into a character building tale with a clear hero? And finally, I end with a love letter to my own kids who are growing up as third generation Asian American kids. So, my son, his favorite meal is dim sum. And I think I mostly know what to order, but it's always better when grandpa orders because he orders in Cantonese. And my kids are more American than I am, but I always wonder because they look the same as me, coming from me. I wonder how similar our experiences will be. So this poem was originally published in Gyroscope Review, and it's called "I'm Glad You Like Dim Sum." We need to teach you Chinese because it doesn't matter that you say the country you were born in was New Jersey. Someone is going to yell at you on the street someday and tell you to go back. Yes, all the way back to Jersey you go. And where should they go? So you may as well learn the language they think you know, refined over 6,000 years, and hear the slight bump in grandma's voice that transforms bread, bao, into Carrie, beauty, May, and doubled back into little sister. Your May May asked me why our hair is black instead of yellow, like in all the fairy tales. Let me just say that you are both the most beautiful bread I have carried. I'm glad you like dim sum, the hagao, siomai, sweet sesame balls, love and pride all wrapped up in tougher than it looks skin. It's okay if you don't like chicken feet. Maybe if you weren't actually from Jersey, you would understand how to eat them because I don't. Thank you.
Lisa Park, thank you so much. I just love the generational story that threads between those three pieces. Our next reader, finalist Bruce Sager. Um, Buckle in because Bruce has been around a minute and this bio is quite amazing and lengthy, and I didn't want to edit it. Bruce Sager of Westminster, Maryland, was awarded the 2014 Williams Matthews Poetry Prize, selected by Poet Laureate Billy Collins. The Indulgence of Icarus, a book length poem, was released in 2016 by Echo Point Press. A prior book, Famous, won the Harris Poetry Prize, judged by Poet Laureate Dick Allen. An early book, The Pumping Station, was given the Artscape Literary Arts Award, judged by Poet Laureate William Stafford. Sager has had some irrationally good luck with Poets Laureate, but it hasn't carried over to the stock market. He's also won Maryland State Arts Council Individual Artist Awards in both poetry and fiction, and has published poems and book reviews in many literary magazines over more decades than he'll admit to. And sometimes he finishes sentences with prepositions, though he should know better. Bruce, come on up.
I don't know if I'm We've probably all had the experience of lying in bed with our partner and chatting. Bed. We speak of money. We speak of children. We speak of restaurants. We speak of movies. We speak with wonder of our good fortune. We speak of fortune cookies, their chronic absurdities, but we speak of them. We speak of the eccentricities of our friends. This the sort of thing that percolates for hours. We speak of that which we cannot know. We speak of the smiling young man who comes 3 times a week to train us in our makeshift gym. Beneath our canopy, we speak of the ceaseless insults of the body, the smaller insults of travel. We speak of the tiny insults of the day. We speak of the large hypocrisies that issue daily from the radio, the television, the Times. The times. We speak of the times of our lives when we were not ourselves. Regret. But please, is regret ever worth the effort, the acid? We speak of diminishments. We speak each at times of small nobilities committed by the other. We speak of infidelities as insects feeding upon the leaves of a rose. The holes disfigure. The rose endures. And our bodies stiffen in the cotton beneath the dark. So the words then are not made of letters, but silences. We speak as privates of the long history of generals, of pashas. We speak of private histories, galactic histories. We speak of the cosmos at times. We speak of time as a river, one direction. Sometimes we speak of abiding in the bleak, hot, freezing Northeast, in this nowhere place out past the sticks, where our neighbors live in shambling houses and do not share our politics. We speak of Italy. Sometimes we speak of Italy. Well, Shailene, if I had trouble with that, I'm going to have a lot of trouble with this one. I'm going to set it aside for now. This is called the slow boat. The slow boat is the one that takes so long to get something to you that your interest in whatever it was dries up long before it arrives. You even forget the matter entire until the day the semaphores wave and the boat goes toot toot, so as you can feel the notes in your gut, and the docks shake, and the slow boat breathes its last and collapses prone at the pier, where men and women like ants swarm over it and unpack every cell of the slow boat, and then somehow route whatever it was, or maybe still is, to you, and you look up in surprise when they hand it to you. You being very like our dog, prone to startle. The way she sits on the curb out front, sunning dawn to dusk, guarding a road that never has any traffic or almost never, so that when something crests the horizon, it's a surprise. And when it comes roaring up, she has to focus. She has to shake herself to be reminded of what she's supposed to do, which is to chase it for a ways and then give up. Roused at last, though sleepy now for all that effort, but she's an old dog. And that's pretty much what you'd expect of her, which is fine. But then what does that say about me, who's not so old in people years as she is in dog years, who, when an idea roars by, chases after it for a while, yet never catches anything but the wind? Poem from my brother, my twin. You went your way early, I went mine. Still, we talk. Phones, the opiate of the aging class. No texts for us, just a good, honest, just a good, honest, bodiless voice laughing about something that did or did not happen 50 or 60 years ago. A good, honest voice on the other end of a ground line. Funny, we both chose ground lines. Nature or nurture? Well, we talk about our kids, large bounties, small banes. We talk about the women we married, criteria, taste. We talk about our tastes as if they were buds in our mouth. What budded once, what's budding? We talk about the cousins who've drifted away, those small boats made of yesterday's papers. Somewhere out on the sea, of, on the sea of seas, their sails, like ours, sometimes empty, sometimes full. Well, we assume a fullness. How can we know? We try their numbers maybe twice a decade. We leave our names, they don't call back. We talk about mom and pop as though all that past life, that real life, were now just a movie ripe for review. We talk about politics if we have the stomachs. We talk about polemics, even poems. How odd that you read them and I write them, and why not the other way around? Oh, brother, where art thou? I need an anchor to the past and a candle, even a small one, for the future. I miss you in ways that beggar words, or maybe I'm simply tired tonight, willing to settle for cliche because sometimes cliches get it just so. The point is, I've left a light on. You're welcome always at any hour. So drop a dime. Are you any less real because I've made you up? I don't know. You know, W.H. Auden once said, poets lie. You can't trust anything in the mouth of a poet. They lie for the sake of the art. But Shailene, I can see that was real for you. So I've been playing with, well, 6 months ago, a year ago, I was playing with a lot of nursery rhymes and takes on nursery rhymes. I have a really good poem about Jack and Jill, but it's too long. So this one is the short one. It's called Breathless. Yes, Jill, it was a terrible fall, terrifying. But remember how we looked at each other when we found ourselves in that tangle at the bottom? Remember how you fought against your excitement, then opened to it? I recall the slant of the sun across your perfect brow and how your bosom heaved as in the worst of romance novels, the finest moment of my life. I know you will blush, my love, but the best part was the part they leave out of the storybooks. How we made love at the foot of that little hill, how lush the grass, how painful our scrapes and bruises, but the beauty of that pain, how we ached and loved. I reached into the bottomless well of you, Jill, and how many times you lost your breath in a tumble of goodness and grace. So I've noticed of late, because I'm in my 70s now, that a lot of my poetic heroes have passed. And I've seen them writing poems that are clearly uh, last poems in which they address what's important to them. But their powers are failing, so they're not their best poems. And I thought, it'd be much more convenient for me to compose such a thing while I'm still reasonably competent. So I did this one, and I have another one too, which is probably the one to follow this, but that's not here tonight. This is called Gratitude. I give thanks for my patient teachers, most especially as I was a deceiver, bright eyed and receptive at a glance, a decent learner, yet a terrible student, quick on the things that did not matter and molasses on the things that did. I apologize for never summoning quite the number of horses I should have, and say only by way of feeble defense that I think I never had the horsepower they thought I had, or surely never learned to marshal it. I give thanks for the bitter wafer of self knowledge. I give thanks for the women who put up with me for as long as they did. If the great scales of justice were adjusted to measure long sighted and short, my short would thud on the wood like lead. I give thanks for being one link in a chain. My grandfathers were nearly indentured. I give thanks for my children, thanks that they will never live in chains. I give thanks for the days that have floated off like pages ripped from a calendar in an old movie, just a corny way to denote the passage of time, yet give thanks for that passage, for those many days, months, years, and thanks as well for the hours left, for whatever there be at the end of the pier. Chelsea, I'm going to sell some books for you if they ever arrive, because I'm not going to read Gertrude and Otis for reasons we discussed. But I will close with a one-line poem, and if you're a Shakespeare fiend, you will appreciate it. It's called Diminishment. Shall I compare you to a summer's day? All right, he says thee. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? I'll read it again. Diminishment. Shall I compare you to a summer's day? Thank you.
Bruce, thank you so much. Wow, I could listen to more and more of your work. And our books did arrive. Ned, they didn't? Oh, okay. All right. Well, at the end, we'll remind you how to get the issues online, okay? But thank you, Ned, for being here. Ned Tillman's on the board of Little Patuxent Review. Now it's my turn to read. Oh, yeah, please. Sorry.
No.
Quick adjustment. Okay. Thank you. So, summer's a really personal time for me because I was born on the summer solstice. So I feel like I own this whole season. And the summer solstice kind of changes days sometimes. Sometimes it's the 21st, sometimes it's the 22nd. I only observe it on my birthday, which is the 21st of June. And this is sort of my my poem about that. Born on June 21st. Summer as vanishing point, as clothesline, sweet talking mud stain, sweat as jewelry, body of water disturbed, as pile of bicycle wheels spun, as your slightest hairs magnified under a deerfly's wing, summer as given name, eyeglasses relocated, as vehicle built from lost map, as the truth, Ruth. Ancestors' arms swept into tire swing for the family tree, as root remembered, as recipe where the strawberry seed sparks between your teeth. Thank you. I just brought a whole bunch because I feel sometimes connected to certain poems and not connected at other moments. It's so interesting. It's like this, it's sort of this ongoing relationship that you just have to like reestablish every time you look at old poems you've written, or even recent ones. I'm like, no, I'm not feeling you today. I don't know when I will be, but I'll bring you just in case. Um, I'm gonna read this one. One of my oldest friends, her name is Emily. Um, her life is it's just so fantastically dramatic and beautiful, and she texted me today, so I feel this is a sign that I should read her poem. Even the far out songs. Emily's drunk on $3 wine. Backbone's crooked again, her tower of fists. So she has to lie flat on the floor. Says, I could spend 10 years in someone's lap, them smoothing my hair, them saying, I love you, you're so pretty. And still, it wouldn't be enough. This May belongs to the tent caterpillars, furred, dropping. They ride the shirts of bicyclists around Lake of the Isles, clump on sidewalks, orgies of appetite. Their markings lure like stained glass. As kids, we pet their blue so careful before sentencing coffee cans full to mom's yard fire. Emily, racing strangers on Highway 94, sings the new favorite. Listen to the words. A man falling backward in snow. She sings her father's name, Michael. Heart attack on Valentine's is a hard act to follow, though her husband's hurry to leave weeks later offered no deference, blew the spotlight. And music still shows up, like letters from heaven the thief to this worst year. When Emily sings, even the far out songs turn about her all along. Here I go in fourth grade, thrift shop comet shirt shedding glitter on yellow grass. Emily's Frankenstein knee caked with mud. She dug up a blue rhinestone for me near that old fence. See, it used to sparkle, our secret deep, deep under the thaw. Little strangers run the schoolyard now, dirt storms taking their turn being kids. We don't get to be storms anymore. We forget buried treasure. Surviving tent caterpillars erupt into ochre moths. At last make pilgrimage to the top of the Fauché Tower, where approximately 900 bulbs wait to singe their wings. No one notices unless they're from someplace else. Lovers renting a room in the W Hotel pretend a more glamorous city, mistake moths for shooting stars, for the rumor of still one more snow. I search the alleyway behind Emily's starting over again, apartment, counting what the basswood surrendered, maple leaves eaten up. Tell her, what if hunger starts a new picture? This leaf a cupping like your face paint moon. Here a whale's eye. This one barely a net to puzzle sunlight, not too wrecked to get picked up. Thank you. I meant to tell you that one took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota generally, where I am from originally. Um, oh, since I just said that, this one is also calling to that geography. Not everybody knows, but the Mississippi River actually starts in Minnesota. And it's just such a powerful place if you ever get the chance to go see those headwaters. It's powerful and it's quiet all at the same time. And um, I visited that place when I was trying to have a baby, and it all sort of converged for me. That place, the idea of, the starting of the Mississippi River with starting of a life or wanting a life to start. And this poem came out of that experience. It's called Headwaters. Now that you are here, you must crawl hand over foot across the hip bones. This pack of slick boulders where Mississippi is born, jumping over the edge of Lake Itasca before the day's tourists. How else but to pretend, mother, to take your turn among constant bruising mothers, even though just beside you the infant river yawns ankle deep in her cradle of smooth pebbles where children and elders wade. We've known her name for ages. No, she's already grown, wide as clouds, running history, rewriting borderlands to escape us, cloaked under the Gulf's salt tongue. How could that be? When each moment she opens her eyes for the first time, when this moment she opens her eyes to find you, a reaching shaped before too much light, body soaked and not going back, breathing, breathing the cost, breathing, breathing the miracle. I think I'll stop there. Thank you so much. Without further ado, I am so excited to present the winner of the Enoch Pratt Poetry Contest. Anne Rong is a Taiwanese American poet born and raised in Rockville, Maryland. She is currently an undergraduate student studying English and government at the University of Maryland, College Park. In 2022, she was awarded the George A. Waterius Literary Prize for Poetry. Her favorite book is Written on the Body by Jeanette Winterson, and her go-to sushi order is 1 spicy tuna roll and 1 spicy crunchy tuna roll, both doused in soy sauce. Come on up, Anne. Congratulations.
Hello, everyone. So I guess I'm not really familiar with the etiquette because I didn't print anything out. I was just rehearsing like on my phone. So sorry, like if this is a little bit weird. So I have to open my Google Drive. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So when I did my previous reading, also apologies. I'm kind of a fast talker when I get a little nervous, but I'll try my best to pace it down a little bit. Um, so at the other reading, that was also my first reading. Oh, sorry, that was also my first reading. It was very exciting. And at that point, I had only written 5 poems, and one of them is really bad, and we won't talk about it today. So, for that one, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to read for 5 to 7 minutes. Let me write a new one. So then I wrote a new one, and it was so much fun. But then this one, I checked the email again last night, and it said that I had to read for 10 minutes. And I was like, oh man, 10 minutes? So then I was like, okay, I'll just write another one. So I wrote, so for this reading, I will be reading my poems in order of when I wrote them, just that you can see like my blossoming as a poet, I guess. So the first poem, okay, I guess the first poem was like, it's very silly. We don't have to talk about that one. But the real first one is called Trip to the Grocery Store. I wrote it for my creative writing class in sophomore year. Um, and you can sort of see some threads being connected from that one into the second one, which is the one that is being celebrated. Woohoo. So yes, this one is called Trip to the Grocery Store. Mermaid Rangoon set, poached and dressed in yum yum sauce at Costco wholesale. Fresh chilling from the Orient, all out of stock. Silken tofu too. My mom swears that I'll pluck jinju from the Naicha Sea back home one day. But right now, we need arugula, bacon, and American cheese. So with that one, oh, I guess that's the end of that one. So with that one, you can sort of see some threads where I'm trying to like tap into my Taiwanese culture a little bit. And so then I wrote Chang'e thinks of Ho Yi on the mid-autumn moon. And this one I wrote right around my birthday, which birthday is so important. My birthday is right around the Mid-Autumn Festival. And so there's a whole fable about it, but basically there were like 10 suns and it's very hot. It's so hot, people are gonna die. So then Ho Yi takes his arrow and like shoots down 9 of them. And then the god's like, oh my gosh, thank you for saving us. Here's this elixir of immortality. And one way or another, his wife Chang'e drinks it, whether it's due to like selfishness or if she was forced to. It's a little ambiguous, whatever. But then she gets sent up all the way to the moon, and it's like a very, very sad story. So Chang'e thinks of Ho Yi on the mid-autumn moon. I cut 10 slices into the pomelo skin, careful to keep it in one piece before peeling the smooth rind from the pulp. Then I wear it on my head and think of you. Chang'e, quit it with my hair. I don't have much left, and I won't be so handsome when I'm bald. Chang'e, I'm stuffed. I'm already too round to fit the nice green coat you bought for me last year. Chang'e, don't kiss me yet. I'm sweaty and sour from work. I'll shower first. We've got time. Before long, the juice drips down my scalp, singes my raw eyes with citrus tears, and blurs your face from memory. Still, my mind fruitlessly clings to your phantom. Your lips would put this globe of pink wet flesh, embalmed in bitter moon dust, to shame. And yet, I eat it anyways, piece by piece, with that jade rind still sitting on my head, desperate to savor what's left of you. But try as I might, the peel lifts from my scalp like the moon helplessly drifts from its faithful orbit around that bald, round, green earth, ever sweet and ever waning. So the third poem, I was real ambitious, and I learned what a contrapuntal was. So I decided to give my shot at it over winter break. And it's sort of like grappling on girlhood and how hard it is being a girl in a world that's not great for girls. And other themes, but we'll get into that. So this one is called Maraschino Cherry Season, and I'll read each of the separate parts first and then the whole thing. So, maraschino. She died because we know too many to all be kept fresh. That summer, I secretly pack her in salt with clumsy hands, not to keep. It's only a matter of time. Delectable frustration. But I know she'll be safe, desiccated, obscene, the stench of bleach and piss, and still her pit will writhe. The second part is cherry. Too soon cherries ripen. Oxblood teardrops. He pickles all of them under the harvest moon to sweeten, soften, crush the bitter pith. He'll deprive himself. Wait. Skin to sugar, pulp to gorge before he feasts. Brandied little cherries will burst on his tongue. Eat until only he is left. The third part is season. They'll say in unison, shower the earth with liquor and syrup, but gingerly enough to let her be dry again. Alive. For next season's harvest, for endless easy cocktails, he needs plenty to reap, but even more to let spoil. And then maraschino cherry season. She died too soon, they'll say, because we know too many cherries ripen in unison to all be kept fresh. Oxblood teardrops shower the earth that summer. He pickles all of them with liquor and syrup, but I secretly pack her in salt under the harvest moon, gingerly enough, with clumsy hands, not to sweeten, soften, crush, to let her be dry again, to keep the bitter pith alive. It's only a matter of time. He'll deprive himself, wait for next season's harvest. Delectable frustration, skin to sugar, pulp to gorge for endless, easy cocktails. But I know she'll be safe before he feasts. He needs plenty desiccated, obscene, brandy little cherries to reap. But the stench of bleach and piss will burst on his tongue, eat even more, and still her pit will writhe until only he is left to let spoil. So the fourth poem is the one that I wrote for the LPR reading. And this one, I was watching a lot of Narcos on Netflix, a whole lot. And I sort of went to like a little personal research hole into American interventionism during the Red Scare and stuff, because that's like a whole theme in Narcos. Or I guess like in seasons 1 and seasons 2. But, I've since expanded it since that reading, not to be too much longer, but just like, switching around a little bit. And I should also note that what's connecting a lot of these poems for me that I realize in hindsight is my mom, who comes from a family of farmers. They're all from Taiwan. And, when my grandma came here for a little bit, she did a lot of farming too, really got my mom back in the spirit. And right now she's like getting back into it, the summer months. It's a whole thing. But yeah, so this one is called Mother's Garden at Sunset. It's a little long. Mother is perched over the open window ledge in the Mother is perched over the open window ledge in the new sunroom of her old suburban house, with a Marlboro Red clamped between her lips. She is back home from a long day's work where she studies yeast for cancer, dreams of bread for supper, and tries to count on her fingers just how many years she has left. The sunroom overlooks Mother's higgledy-piggledy garden, bloated with the dry, snot-green weeds that have bested her tomatoes yet again. She frowns at her defeat. You see, Mother comes from a long line of farmers whose gardens kindled life and braved death. Grandmother's garden fed a whole army with just one red grain of Argentinian wheat. It starved a dictator with salt of the earth fields, only to revive itself the morning his body hit the soil. Great-grandmother's garden spawned a jungle of Cambodian cardamom. It shielded the weak and sickened the greedy, burying copper bullets into any green fool who dared to cut it down. Great-great-grandmother's ruddy Indonesian coffee beans ground a brew so strong it roused an entire country to its feet. Great-great-great-grandmother grew acres and acres of red Payas grapes, fermented into the sweet poison wine that purged every last rat in Chile. Naturally, Mother can't help but to glare at the failure that lolls below. So paltry, and yet such a terrible, decadent green. She knows they would have never, ever let this happen. With her left hand, Mother takes the cigarette stub from her lips and rolls it between her fingers, making blithe spirals in the cool air, not yet noticing how a thin flake of puce ash drifts from the butt and lands in a corner of the garden. It hisses, followed by a wisp of gray. A small, dark spot forms on a stray leaf and burns a dim red. Quietly, Mother drops the cigarette. In seconds, fire catches. Sweet, acrid winds whip the great plumes of hot smoke in gyres as they breathe from the earth and curl around the festering bed like 100 silver sickles, slashing into its tendrils in a brilliant vermilion blaze. Tobacco and dandelion cinders alike crackle and swarm about the scarlet flames, locusts, before vanishing back into the mouth of the glowing inferno. Mother smiles and returns inside. Behind her, the sun, hanging low on the horizon, slowly reascends the crimson sky and sinks its teeth into the clefts between the scorched weeds. I thought that one was very fun. Yeah, that's the longest thing that I've ever written. So I'm very happy with that. And so the third one I wrote last night / this morning, and this one is because I finished Narcos in the past, and then I started watching Peaky Blinders. Who so good. And so it was great, and no spoilers. There's a lot of horses. There's a lot of weird family dynamics. And as I feel like can hear in my third one and my fourth one, I was like, let's do something weird. Like I tried a contrapuntal, that one, mixed reaction, I guess. And then the last one was like pretty long. So this one I was like, let's return to familiar ground with what looks like a poem to me. Obviously poems come in many different forms, but I was just like, I'm a little tired. So this one is called When Your Husband Comes Home for Dinner. When your husband comes home for dinner, tell him that a mare has gone missing from the stables. The quiet one, the one that's so dark she bleeds into the night. Let him rifle through the house, the barn, the coop, the pen, the farm for an hour or so, and watch his face crumple when the disappearance is not so easily explained. Let him whisper under his breath all the things he wants to wound you with. Of course, this is what I come home to. If you just did what I asked you to do in the first place, first a few hens, then a sow last week, I really don't know how you got this way. So stupid. Were you always this stupid? Once your daughter's eyes get that telltale glaze, pretend that you don't notice. Let her run to him, crawl into his lap, scream and cry unbridled. In 5 short minutes, he'll withdraw entirely, march up the stairs, neck stiff and fists clenched, and your girl still on the sofa, bawling into her little stuffed pony. You'll have to leave her there too. When you see me, take off your coat, your hat, your boots, your shirt, your ring, and bury them in the hay. Tom's a good man, you insist. Cindy needs a father. All while letting our bodies turn into horses as our legs nudge one another's in the dark. Yeah, that's all for me. Thank you very much for listening.
And thank you so much. You inspire me with the way that you just wrote it last night / this morning. Sometimes I forget we can do that, you know? Just write it tonight / tomorrow morning and let it live. And sometimes, I don't know, personally, I will speak for, I can overthink poems to the point where I don't end up actually writing them. And we need to stop that. We need to let them out. Thank you, all of you, for your presence and your poems. I think we want to move to a Q&A now. Do we have time? Yeah? In case anyone has any questions for our readers this evening, this is an opportunity to ask.
Anyone? So if anyone has any questions, call them out. This mic will be for all of the authors. I know you all can share, so please just pass it to each one of you who plans to speak. Otherwise, ask your questions. Woo.
Wait, can
Yeah.
you repeat that? I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Are there any other shows that you're feeling inspired by?
Are there any other
Yes.
shows that you're feeling inspired by at the moment?
Absolutely. Always. So actually, when I was writing that horse one, I also was watching this show called Minx. Has anyone heard of it? Oh my gosh, it's great. I'm trying to think about a way to give a synopsis without like being too raunchy. It's a little raunchy. Women making a magazine. No Hugh Hefner. You know, like you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So, in watching that show, there's a lot of exploration of sexuality, a lot of exploration on how women understand themselves, being, I don't know, ornamental in other senses of the world at that point in time regarding Hugh Hefner adjacent activities. So it was great. There was a little influence of that there because horses, I feel like you can sort of connect the dots. Yeah. So I would love to continue writing about women because I love women. I am one. So that for sure. And oh, this is kind of cringy to say. Ooh, I have been reading so much Karen Slaughter. Has anyone read? Yes, she just writes so much of that scary stuff. And I feel like I want to start writing some scary stuff just to see what would happen. But yes.
giving me this mic, and tomorrow is the umpteenth anniversary of Elvis's death, and I'm just really tempted. Nah.
Shailene, did you have a question? Yeah, the question is there a poet or writer for each of you that inspires you or helps you when you have writer's block and feel stuck?
All right. So I've been writing for a long time, and over the years, I've crushed on Dylan Thomas, on W.H. Auden, and others. But in recent decades, a poet who just passed named Stephen Dunn, who's often considered by people who are in the know to maybe have been our greatest living poet. Mary Oliver's a great poet. Billy Collins is a great poet. There are a lot of great poets, but Stephen Dunn is, he would cringe to hear me say this, an adult. And when I look for tone, when I've lost my voice, I go to him because Stephen always summons something in me that allows me to get back on track. So I think that's the answer to that question. My medicine is the poetry of Stephen Dunn. And I suggest to anyone that they go to a poem which is easily found online. I think it appeared first in 1999. I might be wrong, in Poetry Magazine, but I know you can find it very easily. And it's called Loves, Loves. Loves. Loves accomplishes everything that I would ever want to be able to do in a poem. And when you have a benchmark like that to work from, a lodestar, as it were, um, as long as you don't steal from it or noticeably steal from it, I think you're okay. But that's a poem I would highly commend to anyone.
Okay. So I haven't been in the poetry world as long as you. But the ones that I have gone to this year are Ross Gay and Camille Dungy, because I just feel like um, they speak of just everyday life, but at the same, on the surface it seems simple, but then they go deep, and all of us are like that, right? And then but they somehow find those moments of joy as well, um, in whether in nature or people being kind to each other. And I think just in the the current world that we live in, we just need more of that. So yeah, those are the poets I gravitate towards. And I'm reading more of Camille Dungy now, and because I saw her at the book festival in DC this weekend, and I was such a nerd. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. But I made my son line up for it, and he's 12. So but anyways, I like how she writes about motherhood too, how she weaves that into her poetry, and she writes about how a lot of times that's absent or kind of glossed over, but it's such a part of life and who I am as well right now. So I really appreciate that as well.
I think that I go to a lot of different poets depending on what I need from that poet. I think I really gravitate towards a confessional style. And I mentioned Warsan Shire, just like absolutely floored by all of her work. So that's a go to for me. And also Richard Siken. I think it's pronounced Siken, Silken. Siken, just has such a vivid tone. His book Crush is exactly that. It is crushing. And then also I feel like I follow so many poets on Instagram that are writing poems that are inspired by memes or inspired by uh, other Instagram things, just things that remind me that there are no rules and you can write whatever you want. And sometimes those things that start out as a joke or something like that end up being so poignant.
Thank you. I don't do as much reading as I should. I think, as we know, because I watch a lot of movies and shows. Um, um, but a lot of the poetry that I've been familiarized with is either through the classroom or through one of my friends named Lydia Way, who like, I don't know, shattered my notion that like young people can write poetry. I thought that, like, no offense, it was like an old people thing. So, and she's, she's amazing. So amazing. So, but about the poets that I read, one of my classes that I took had my favorite poem of all time called A Computer's First Christmas Card by Edwin Morgan. And it's like concrete poetry. I don't know if that's the right word. Kind of forgot all the vocabulary I learned. But it's just like a whole bunch of words that make a fun little shape, and then the shape becomes part of the analysis. And it's just a whole bunch. It's just like merry, 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 happy, happy, happy. You know, it's just a whole bunch of words put together, basically, like cobbled together, but it is great. And same thing with the Instagram poets, TikTok poets, man. That's where it's at for me. Like, just a whole lot of I don't know. It's something about the poetry on TikTok when they put a little Lana Del Rey song in the background and the text is very like old style, but there's also like, I don't know, like sort of a foggy sunset in the background behind the text and it's moving and it just like really sweeps you into your emotions. So, TikTok for sure. No rules, absolutely no rules. Edwin Morgan, because I feel like his writing does have a lot of rules, but in the same way defies a lot of them, and my friends.
Answer that.
Yes, let me just repeat the question for the people tuning in from home. The question is, how did you get into writing poetry? How'd you start?
So my dad was actually a professor at Villanova, and he was a poet, and that is probably important to the genesis of my poetry. But I remember exactly when I decided that this fascinated me. I was in seventh grade, and there was an English class, and there was a book, and the cover said, just had the names of four poets on it: so and so, Keats, Yeats, and so and so. And I just kept looking at the cover and going, it's either Keats and Yeats or Keats and Yeats. It drove me nuts. And then I peeked inside and went, this is all you got to do to be immortal. It's so easy.
I got into poetry because my school, which was a K through 12, had a public speaking contest. However, it was not like speech and debate. Every year, every student had to memorize a poem and say it in front of the class, and they were graded on this. And at first, it was just something that was an absolute chore and awful. And then I got very competitive about it, and I recited The Highwayman by Alfred Noyes because Anne of Green Gables recites The Highwayman by Alfred Noyes. And then I was so obsessed with every year finding the perfect poem to top The Highwayman by Alfred Noyes that I exposed myself to so much poetry that then I think I started writing poetry just because I was exposed to so much of it. And then most of it was a joke when I was like in high school or like, little funny poems. But then in college, I think I started to take it more seriously and just really loved it. I also was exposed to At the Maryland Film Festival, I saw a documentary about slam poetry called Spit. And the introduction to slam poetry blew up my love of poetry and like what poetry could be, and the mixture of poetry and performance sold me.
Um, I think that I return. Poetry is my solace, that's how you say it, right? Solace. And uh, training to be a doctor, it's kind of like you don't have time for anything else. Just all the science, all the all the things you have to memorize, and treating patients. It just kind of grinds out, like, I don't know. I don't want to say your soul. That sounds so dramatic, but it's just hard, right? And so, especially, and then going through the pandemic, the last few years was really tough on healthcare and all of us. But just, I can speak from my experience as a healthcare professional. So I just, returned to poetry. Just was for my own, heart. That's what I needed. And also just reading poetry again has helped me just recover, to be honest, from the pandemic. So there's just something about, I mean, you all are here, so I'm preaching to the choir, but there's just something about, well crafted lines, and when someone can evoke feeling and a story and you're not even there, like it's just so amazing to me. So yeah.
Okay, I took AP Lit in senior year, and I read a poem that I really liked, and there were a lot of fun little words in there that I didn't know, and I got a really good grade on that paper. And my teacher was like, "This is college level analysis," and I thought that compliment was so great that I just read a whole bunch of poems, and then I really liked them. And then when I went to college, I decided to take an introductory course in creative writing. Fiction was not available, so I took poetry.
That's great. Any more questions? Yes. Hmm. That was a word of gratitude for the poems Eleanora wrote for her mother and shared. Hmm. All right, that feels like a good place to stop. Thank you all again so much for coming and supporting these poets. And I do apologize that we don't have the LPR issues that they are published in this evening, but you can very quickly, easily find them and purchase them online at littlepatuxentreview.org. And while you're at it, you can get a subscription for 2 issues a year. And those of you who are writers, please submit to LPR. Our submissions is open now through November 25th. And please, poets, send your work to the Pratt Poetry Contest, which is March 1st. Is that the deadline for next year? Haven't announced it yet. Haven't, but it's in the spring. So watch for that, because it's just such a beautiful opportunity and your poems are received with so much love. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just wanted to thank Chelsea and Little Patuxent Review again. And thank you, Chelsea, for hosting tonight. That was lovely. And thank you to all the poets for your wonderful poems and readings this evening, which gave us all a lot of pleasure. I want to thank the Hearing and Speech Agency for providing accessibility for tonight's event. Thank you so much. And just to echo Chelsea's reminder that you can purchase Little Patuxent Review online. Also, don't forget to pick up a copy of the beautiful broadside of Anne's poem. It's on the table with the red tablecloth in the back of the room, and that's completely free. I'm sure Anne would be happy to sign it for you. Yes, okay. And that's a way you can take a little memento of this evening with you. And I did forget to mention that Bruce brought a few books. I think that he's also, I believe, willing to sell. So you can have a chat with him if you are interested in that. And please sign up for our poetry events email list. So we will see you at other poetry events. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight or for being with us online. We really appreciate your attention, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Say, say, say.